Mercer.
Hello.
At the Liberal Party Leadership Convention. Anyways, I hope that didn't spike the levels, but anyways, so they just announced Stéphane Dion in the lead at around 37%, but it's still around a three-way race with Ignatieff just a little behind, and Ray is certainly down.
Well, Ray has to go now, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, that's the idea. So, you know, it's very interesting. It's certainly interesting to see Ignatieff in second place. He didn't expect to be there.
No.
You know, I've been talking to some Ignatieff's delegates on the floor, and they have the pallid air of someone about them who is kind of in palliative care eating applesauce but making plans for running a marathon. But who knows? Maybe they'll pull it out of the fire. I have no idea. Ray's the king. He's the kingmaker.
Well, Ray will be the kingmaker, but do you think he's actually going to go anywhere? He and Ignatieff were roommates. They were buddies. And now they're apparently not speaking anymore.
You know, there's too much put into the fact that they were roommates. You know, that makes it for an interesting narrative when two people live on different continents and don't really have that much to do with one another and have a professional association. But I think if you look at most people and you look into their regular lives, they all have roommates in their past. And quite frankly, they think are arseholes. Just because you were someone's roommate doesn't mean that you want to see them become the prime minister. And that works both ways. So I have really no idea what's going to happen there. You know.
How do you account for Dion's incredible growth, though? I mean, I didn't think his speech was that great. What do you think?
You know what? I'm at a disadvantage there because I only caught 4 of the speeches because I was traveling and I missed Dion's speech. I don't think anyone has ever accused him of, you know, lighting a room on fire. But, you know, a lot of people accuse him of being incredibly smart. You know, he's got a lot of years.
They accuse him of that.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of years under his belt with no scandal. He's got a lot of years under his belt with no real enemies in politics.
Clarity.
You know,
I'll give you the clarity.
Well, it's just, you know, that speaks to some people, and they like what, you know, obviously there's a lot of liberals here who like what he's saying.
Okay, we're on Blogging Tories, so put yourself in the mind of a conservative, if you can do that, if you can. Who do you think would be Stephen Harper's worst nightmare?
Honestly, I think Bob Rae would have been Stephen Harper's worst nightmare. I think Stephen Harper relaxed the minute he saw that Bob was in trouble. I really, really believe that. You know, a guy like Stéphane Dion, for example, you know, he's not known as a very personable person or a very charismatic person.
Have you ever had him on your show?
No, but he's not known as a very charismatic person. He doesn't light up a room with his personality. And, you know, the same is said about Stephen Harper. Mm-hmm. So one would think the Liberals would want to go to their strengths there and, you know, find someone who's got a bit more pizzazz, which certainly Bob Rae probably would. The other thing is Bob Rae was road tested as an opposition guy. And, you know, Dion's not, and, well, Ignatieff certainly isn't.
Well, Ignatieff seems to have foot and mouth disease. He said he's probably the least controllable, I would say, of all the candidates.
Yeah, although it's hard to say because he's learning on the job. And you know, it's just hard to say. He hasn't been in the game that long, which is certainly a deficit, but at the same time, you know, chances are if he won, he'd probably figure that out.
Now, I've heard from some media friends that Stéphane Dion won't be able to run an effective campaign against Stephen Harper, and that some people are saying from the media that if Dion wins, majority government Harper, because he doesn't really play well in the rest of Canada.
Well, that's, you know, nobody knows. I mean, quite frankly, the guy doesn't have a very high profile in a lot of Canada, but
that could be an asset, or
you know, I don't know. You know, Stephen Harper's the prime minister, and there wasn't very many people who ever believed that was going to happen, including a lot of Tories.
That's very true.
And so it happened. I mean, you know, that's what makes politics interesting. I mean, who's to say? Quite frankly, I mean, you know, Dion's a bit of an enigma to me. I don't really know, how he would fare. I mean, his English is not that great. You know, Kheiriddin didn't have the best, you know, grasp of the English language, but he was funny. He could deliver a speech. You know, I really don't know. I honestly don't know.
If Dion wins, is the next election about the environment? Because, I mean, do the Liberals really have an environmental record that they can run on?
Well, you know, you're a Tory, right? So that's your point. Like, oh, do they have a record that they can run on? But, you know, I think some people might argue that the Tories are also just running on, you know, the Liberals' record. And it's going to get harder and harder to do that. Yeah. I mean, you know, you're going on a year and you're still Canada's new government. And if you're going to run another election on Canada's new government, quite frankly, I think you'll start to look a little silly. But, you know, again, greater minds than I. Obviously, the environment will be a big issue, but as you know, Conservatives by and large know that the environment tolls high. when people are asked about concerns, but it's a conservative tenet that people will not vote on the environment,
Yeah.
which is why the conservatives traditionally haven't given a shit, because they know that
It's not their base.
It's not
Yeah.
their base, so
Yeah.
they don't care, which is unfortunate because it's the environment. But and you know as well, just Stephen Harper. Well, not that he's ever uttered the words climate change. I don't know if he has, but I mean, even with this Clean Air Act or whatever it's called, I mean, quite frankly, it's not appeasing any environmentalists, and it's alienating a lot of the conservative base because a lot of conservatives believe that climate change is poppycock.
Yeah.
I mean, two of my closest friends who are conservatives are completely convinced there's no such thing, and that's the conservative base. I don't know.
Now, last question.
So I think the Liberals would try to make it an issue, but the Conservatives won't care.
Okay, since we just saw the third ballot results, and we were first to talk to you, who's the next Liberal leader? What's your prediction now?
I'm not going to make a prediction, but
Who do you feel it might be?
I on my blog a couple of hours ago, I said that it looked like Stéphane Dion, so I'll stick with that. But there's a lot of Ray delegates out there, and I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know if Ray will go one way or the other, and then I'm sure, people are still pretty independent on these things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of elephants in the room. Whether Canadians, there's a lot of people in English Canada might think, can Dion win?
Because I think this race is shaping up between the Liberal elites and the grassroots, and Dion's the grassroots. And they're showing that we're not going to let the elites pick our leader.
It's funny that you guys are calling Bob Ray like the Liberal elites.
Oh, come on.
Or Ignatius the Liberal elites,
He was recruited by Ray was recruited by
Yeah, but that's what happens in politics. We just had a by-election in London, Ontario, and you guys, said that Diane Haskell was the result of the grassroots momentum when she was handpicked by Stephen Harper. I mean, come on. That's just politics.
Okay.
The elite. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what that means.
All right.
I know more Tory elites than Liberal elites. But that's just the people I hang with.
Very elitist.
Rick Mercer, thanks very much.
Thank you. All right.
See you
Thanks
later.
very much. Cheers.